You're listening to Nothing Small About Business, where big thinking meets real-world action. Ready to level up? Let's get into it.
Today's guest is one that stems from comedy to pain to now recovery. He's the brother of the late Chris Farley and is a passionate advocate for mental health and addiction treatment with Recovery.com. Tom Farley, welcome to the podcast.
Well, so good to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm
Thank you.
really excited to hear your story.
And in full, just to be completely honest, like, yes, funny, but like in my family, the least funny in the family. So I have to say that my brothers make me say that.
That's a tough act to follow.
It
Right?
really
That's the
is.
bar that's set in the family.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not fun. Yeah. Yeah. All my friends are like, oh, Tom is so funny. It's like, yeah, not. Yeah.
Like I didn't
not,
get that gene.
Yeah. In different
People
ways.
probably
Yeah.
do expect that from you.
It's horrible. And not only that, but like, yeah, and Chris has been gone for a number of years now. So, but everyone sees Chris as like, Chris died at 33, but he was acting 23. And if he was alive, he'd be in his 60s. And now people are like, oh, Chris Farley's fire, like fall on that table. And like, I'm old now. Like, stop. Chris gets to be young forever. And
That's so
his
true.
brothers and I are like, no, this is what Chris is supposed to look like.
Right. Yes. Oh gosh, that's so true. Yeah, I didn't really even think about that you're forever lumped in with that.
Yeah, and I guarantee you Chris would have a worse back pain than I do. So there.
For sure. With the way he was doing his
the way he
so
did his
physical.
Yeah, like pratfalls and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, he'd be in real pain. It's
Oh my
not
gosh,
fun.
that's hilarious. No, it's not. I'm so excited to hear your story today. So can you let's start from what your story is and how it got you to where you are, where now you're such an advocate
Sure.
for addiction and mental health and things like that.
Yeah, and we can dig in different parts of it. But, growing up in Wisconsin, I like to say, we checked 3 boxes. As I came to find out, we had a long generational history of issues with alcohol. We are Irish, and we live in Wisconsin. We only had to check one of those boxes.
Those two things together.
I mean, and the thing is, it was all normative. Drinking was normative and all those things. It was part of our identity. If you're a Farley, you drank. If you're Irish, you're supposed to drink. You live in Wisconsin. I think everyone knows that story.
Yeah.
So I grew up thinking this was all kind of normative. So aside from that, also I was the oldest of 4 boys. We have an older sister, but oldest of the boys. And it was always, my dad was this entrepreneur, he had his own business, and it was like, you're going to go to Georgetown like my dad did, and you're going to go into business. And so I had this in my head that this is what I was supposed to be, my expectations, and I started to build on that. And then Chris comes along and I'm like, I want to be an actor. It's like, I didn't know that was an option.
Wait a minute, this was not possible.
And then
then
our 2 youngest brothers were like, we're going to follow him. Like,
right, that looks way more fun.
So I went on that track. I lived in New York, graduated from Georgetown with a marketing degree and moved to New York only because all my friends did. And I just wanted to continue to have fun, and worked in financial services, which was ridiculous because I hate numbers, but it was just that's what I thought I needed to do. And it didn't feel right. And, and all during that time, then Chris started, not only to get very successful, but he also, his, addiction started to grow. And I think in our family, it was easy for us to point to Chris and say, well, we're not that bad, so I guess we're okay. And like, we weren't, but we didn't want to be honest about our own issues. So we made it all about Chris. And then
that's so interesting.
Yeah. And then when Chris, passed away from this disease, I did something completely out of context for me as a Midwestern Irishman. I'm like, I need to talk about this. Instead of burying that emotion, which is what I was taught to do, I said, this is too much pain, too much. I need to talk about this loss.
So I get it out of your body.
Yeah. So my advocacy started going into schools, because that was Chris's kind of fan base, and talking about Chris's story, hoping to kind of change things for people. But all that time, even though I may have been helping, I was telling somebody else's story, not my own, and
Hmm.
it was still having, issues, and train wrecks and all that kind of stuff. And, but I was doing some really interesting stuff. What I was doing with it, if I was doing this in Chris's name, I knew I had to use humor, even though I was talking about it, addiction. But I looked at my brother, so I went through Second City and learned improv, and I did what I do is I studied it. I'm the smart one of the family, and learned that it was designed to help inner city kids on the south side of Chicago. These games were developed by this woman, Viola Spolin, to create connection. And I'm like, that's schools need.
That's the
So
link. Yeah.
yeah, you can educate all you want, but you need a tool. And so I just went in teaching improv,
Wow.
and it
Okay.
was so much fun. The kids loved it. I talk like, how does it make you feel when when you've built this ensemble around you and where it's okay to make mistakes and it's okay to be your authentic self? And I've been doing that for, over 25 years now. And again, all, there were times throughout that I said to myself, I probably shouldn't drink either. And so I would, have like really long periods, 4 or 5 years of sobriety, thinking that that was all I needed to do. And yet I was still causing all sorts of life wasn't, kind of working out for me. And, I couldn't figure out why. I thought I was doing the hardest thing by not
Hmm.
drinking, but it was, when I finally, approached that, and none of that during that time, I would go to meetings and I would listen to people share their stories. And it was just like with my family. It's like I would go, well, that guy drinks more than me, just like Chris
Right.
drank. Like I don't belong here. And finally, about 7 years ago, somebody, that I really respect in this field that helped so many people said, come with me to a meeting. And I went in, and instead of listening to how much people drank or, what drugs they took, I started listening and hearing, oh, I've had broken relationships like that person. I've had job loss like that person because of all this stuff. And I'm like, that's what this is about. If I want to work on all this stuff, I just need to be sober to do it.
Hmm.
I don't need, don't need that, I don't need that coping mechanism because that's preventing me from being this authentic self. And it just radically changed. And also now I started going out and telling my story, not Chris's, mine. And I suddenly got what I always wanted was this connection. I attracted people that said, like, I heard my story and yours. And I was healing by telling my story and hearing I was just hearing people differently. I was being honest about my own issues, and it just radically changed everything.
That probably feels so different sharing your personal story as opposed to almost like putting on a performance sharing
Oh,
Chris's story. That's got
uh,
to feel so different.
well, yeah, it's funny. I say this about myself, and I know this was true for Chris, is we could be in the middle of a room, a bar, let's be honest. It would be
Right.
a little bar, surrounded by people, center of attention, making everyone laugh, and not feel more like we're standing on the surface of the moon. It's like we're giving everyone what they want from us, who they wanted us to be, and like, but this hollow feeling, like, but they're not seeing me. They're not here.
Yeah.
That's not me. I'm
It's a
doing all this stuff.
performative. And yeah, I wonder
Yeah.
if that's like a protective mechanism of
Oh, it
I'm
is.
getting all this attention. This is what they expect of me. I'm good at that, but that's not really like no one's seeing me for truly who I am.
It's that fear and self doubt of who we are that we don't want to show people because what's if they don't like what's if they don't like it? What's if I don't like that person? And what I say about recovery is recovery exists on the other side of fear, and you have to
Hmm.
get through that fear. And part of that, to do that is learning to be vulnerable.
Hmm.
And that's what I did. You read one Brene Brown book and it's over. You're like,
Done.
all right, that's it. Okay, I makes
I
sense.
get it. Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
You said something really important that I want to dive a little deeper on, and it was that your family, it became, and where you lived and everything, it was so normal for people to be drinking. And, it goes back to that concept of like who you surround yourself with. And if you're with five drinkers, you're going to be the sixth. And I find that to be so true. And it was a conversation I had when I had Christy on the podcast. It was like, if you are showing up to a party, but then we're bringing wine, it feels very normal that that's like accepted and we're all doing it. So can you talk a little bit about like how you might have had to change then who you surrounded yourself with or the
Well, this
awareness
was
you need to
yeah,
have?
well, this was interesting. I was going into any situation and changing me to meet that situation because I wanted connection. So I let them choose how I was going to connect. So I was a person with my college friends. I was a different person with my Wisconsin friends. I was a different person in business, and I just was not my authentic self. Now I've learned to just come into every situation as my authentic self and look, this is who I am. And if it's not working, I leave. I'm not going to start performing to fit in. It's like, this is me.
Hmm.
And,
Was that a
um,
process to be able to get to that point where you could walk in a room and feel like you could just completely be yourself?
um, no, it's liberating. It's like, it was just, I was fearful of showing that. But when I started to show that authentic person and getting the result of people coming to attracting, wanting to know more about that person, I'm like, wow, this is what I always wanted. And the thing is, when I was trying to be somebody that I wasn't, the only way I knew how to do that was to control everyone around me. My family had to be a certain way so I could be that person. My employer
Hmm.
had to give me that job, not the one I have, that one, because I got to be this, and when I stopped trying to curate this life and just live it authentically, I had serenity. And the thing, like in recovery, like there's a couple of pillars that I cling to. One of the first things I heard in the meeting was the words rigorous honesty. And I was
Hmm.
like, wow, like, so I'm Irish and my profession is in marketing PR. So like I know the gray areas of honesty, like rigorous, like, oh my gosh,
Like that
that's a
level?
thing. That's a thing. Like I didn't think that was supposed to be a thing. So
Yeah.
I learned to just and with myself, just like, that's not you. You're performing, you're being, so it was interesting. So I started out based on these expectations of what I thought I needed to be, building that. And then on top of that, I became somebody's brother that I had to live up to.
It's a huge responsibility.
And like how I dug out of that, it's amazing to me. Like, how did I find myself, with all of that piled on top of me? Um, and,
Yeah, how do you even start to unpack that? And then especially with the level of fame and success that he had, but then all the addiction problems and you saw a completely different side of him. And then to rectify all that,
well,
there's a lot there.
it's funny. I started to give Chris the grace that I was giving myself in that, like, and I'm blessed that I'm able to kind of separate these two people, this brother with an addiction from this brother that I love, because each of those personas comes with lots of different emotions. And if I kept them together, that's a roller coaster that was hard to do. Like one minute I'm sad, the next minute I'm resentful, or, angry, and I'm like, no, like just maybe understand Chris and his, what he needed out of life and his addictions, why that happened, and the emotions there. And then like I'm left with this brother that I got to see more and more clearly as years go by. And I like to say now I have a better relationship with my brother now than I ever did when he was alive, because I understand not just him, but I understand me too. I understand,
Hmm.
the shared traumas that we both had. Dad. No, I know it was
Right.
mom.
Yeah.
It
Right.
was mom. It was mom.
Let's
It
talk
was
about
mom.
your childhood. I mean, there is something there with like having those life experiences and the education piece that you have to now be able to look back on a situation and understand it from probably a completely different lens and like
Yeah.
have some grace for you probably can understand more of like why he was the way he was and why he had those
Oh,
addictions and have more compassion for it as opposed to anger and resentment.
Absolutely. And you know, it's fun, it's sad as like he tried to show these little glimmers of who he was, and then you were very lucky to be able to see that. And it was hard for me to see that because I had to share a bedroom with him growing up. But anyway, um, but when you do see those glimpses, I'm like, oh man, that was the real Chris. And
There
like
he is, right?
maybe that's true for me too, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe I get to, I have this opportunity now. I can show people that, you know, Chris never got that opportunity. I'm kind of doing it for both of us. Yeah.
Right. And how cool that you do have that opportunity to take,
Yeah.
your the pain and turn it into a purpose. So I would love to talk more about, everything behind your mission comes from a very painful place. So what is it like turning pain into a passion and a purpose?
Well, you know, again, it goes back to that rigorously honest kind of, you know, not only being honest about it, but then there's other things uh, that you can add to that, which, you know, in recovery, which is gratitude, humility, and so you combine all those things, and all that pain and grief, you know, is no longer um, has that hard effect on you
Like
because
almost like a
you
hold over you,
you
right?
you yeah, you approach it with, you know, as I said, gratitude for some things, some humility for things, and then the most beautiful thing is you also you realize that, oh my gosh, I'm not alone in this, you know. And when you start, the more I tell my story, and every time I go to you know, a group and share my journey, my story, I always I now I tell them, like, I understand what you're saying. What you're really saying is me healing. I tell my story to heal, and it's a continual process, and I need others to, you know, to help me with that. And as I said, in recovery, we tell our stories because we don't heal in isolation. We need to be
Hmm.
around people, and the more I get to model that and tell people it's okay, you know, to lean into that pain and that vulnerability because it doesn't last long. All of a sudden, you have this you're this community, and you're not alone anymore,
You're
and you
not
start to
alone,
feel
right?
that. Yeah,
Yeah, and that's such an important piece to it when you can
yeah,
connect with somebody and they can feel like you understand them and you've lived through it. So who can understand it better than somebody who's actually walked the walk and lived through it is
yeah.
that's such a powerful piece to it. And it's true that you do find your own healing probably every time you speak about it. Probably a little piece of
Every
you
time,
heals a little bit more.
every time, you know. And what's really neat is I'm still introduced as, well, like, you know, Chris Farley's brother, like,
Right.
and so I think a lot
You'll
of people,
probably always have
yeah,
that. I'm
I
sorry.
know. But I think some people come to hear me talk thinking that they're going to hear stories of, you know, the crazy Farleys growing up.
Right.
And I love it after I talk when people come up to me and said, this is not what I thought it was going to be. Like, when I start to share my story and people say, like, not only did I expect to hear, you know, stories about somebody else, but like I heard my story and yours. And that connection that was created is, I can't tell you what that feels like. It's amazing.
Right. And
Yeah.
watching, people be able to change their lives and make, better decisions because of something that they felt they could connect with you on is that's like, you can't
Yeah.
beat that.
Yeah, we're healing together. Yeah.
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about the business side. So you're working with recovery.com. So what
Oh,
does that look like?
wow. I mean, first of all, I love that I found this, you know, found this place, that this tech startup that started in my hometown. It started here in Madison, Wisconsin.
Don't
And
you feel like okay, when you get in alignment, don't you feel like the universe delivers exactly who you
yeah,
need and what you need? Like the people that will start coming into your life when you're living in alignment, it is the coolest
it,
thing to watch unfold.
I, I'm in awe. Like, I wake up every morning waiting, like, is this dream going to stop now? It's amazing. But what was really cool is that, so I loved the mission, creating this website that helps people find the treatment they need. And coming from the treatment side, it was all about, you know, we have this many beds open, or we're in network with you. you find the best, clients and how you treat the best people. You treat them by giving them what they need, and matching their. So this site really helps people not only find the treatment, but also really, a lot of people are pushed into treatment. Their
Hmm.
family tells them they need to go, their doctor, they've had an intervention, and they finally say, okay, I'll go. What I tell people now with this, with the resources on our site, not just finding treatment, but the backside of like people telling their stories and understanding more about addiction, it's like the sooner you can gain that agency and understand this disease and own it, the more successful you're going to be. And I think that's what we're doing is we're really, helping people find, what they need, but also own it. And then,
Hmm.
they find, the right treatment and, and it's
Well, it probably
successful.
feels like it's more on their terms, like
Yes.
you
Yeah.
said. And so that's coming from a completely different place than
Yeah.
somebody telling you you need to do this
And
versus
then,
you having that
yeah.
opportunity to find what you need, you know?
And the thing that blew me away when I got here, and I loved the mission. So I was like, I'm all on board. But then, I've been in like some really big corporate cultures, global companies. And I came here and like the first like marketing team meeting I went to, instead of going around the room, it's like, what's your plans for this next month? Or how did you do last month? That somebody went around. It's like, all right, everyone, like, let's start by saying, what are you grateful for? I'm like, wait, what? Eh, Great, like you want to hear what I'm grateful for, and I started hearing other people's gratitudes, and like all of a sudden I'm really caring about the people I work with, and it's this culture that, and not everyone's in recovery, like very few are actually in recovery, but they're taking the concepts of recovery and they built it into the culture because that's our mission, and so it's coming from internal
It's like
first.
humanizing it. It's like everybody
Oh
here
my
is a
God.
person on the inside. And yeah, that's cool.
And when I started my career, there was a lot of talk, and still is, of work-life balance, and like you're this person at work, and then you're this person in your real life, and you got to find the balance, and that made sense. But then like, but I'm not two different people. I'm the
Right.
same person, and like having a culture that welcomes me in as I am, that's a sense of belonging that I never thought a corporate culture could ever deliver. And yet I'm experiencing that all the time here. I've also talked about the ensemble for, I don't know how many years. This is a true ensemble. I finally found a company that gets it,
Hmm. And how
that
cool that it's a tech company.
I know.
You said, right? That you like years ago, you probably would have thought like, oh, a tech company is going to be a great place to be leading the charge in recovery.
I finally found a place that, in the Farley family where I'm actually like the funny one now, like Tommy works for a tech company. How hysterical is that? Totally. I don't know what
Full
they're,
circle. Then now you're
I
back to
know.
being the really smart one and all of it,
Yeah, but I'm not though. I look at like I go back. I really avoid the tech side of the office. Like, what are you looking at? Like, what is on your screen? Like, why is yours different from mine? They're
Right.
coding and this. Like, I don't know.
A lot of what you're doing with them is that then outreach and speaking to groups and speaking at different
Yeah,
places.
that was the most fun when I sat down initially with our founders, and they said, "Well, we're a tech company, but like we don't know how to get out in front of people and tell our and with our messaging." I'm like, "That's all I know how to do, like in front of people." So I'm giving them, you know, a skill set that is the only one I have, but it's what they
It's a
needed, and it's
powerful one
perfect.
though, and you
Yeah,
can connect with an audience by sharing your story so vulnerably. That
yeah,
is just going to help so many people because they can resonate with you. You
yeah.
can't have somebody that's never walked the walk go up there and try to tell people what to do. They're not going to believe it.
And I've always had that kind of duality in my mind. I always had that business side of my mind as well as that highly emotional, humorous kind of stuff. And I feel like now I get to use both sides,
Hmm.
equally.
I think that's what can be really powerful about, people that want to start businesses or get into a field where it is such a passion project, or, something where it was like a pain that they want to turn into something that is positive. So I would love to hear like what advice you would give for people that, it might be an industry where it comes from a place of a trauma or something that is painful. So can you talk to me about what it is living
Yeah,
in
it's
that day to
interesting.
day?
I always thought like I was always uncomfortable in this business because it wasn't feeding my passion. And I'm like, you got to chase your passions, and I don't believe that anymore. I think when you solely focus on chasing your passion, I think you end up losing an awful. You'll never achieve that. It's not what business is about. You know, I think there's elements of it, but I think you use it as a skill set to match the mission or whatever it is, but it's not all about your passions, and it's how you utilize those passions for the greater good. It's not all about you. It's really taking the ego out of it, really.
Hmm.
And it's a powerful driver, but if you don't know how to connect with people, you don't know what people want, or you don't know, you're not flexible enough to maneuver kind of this fast-paced environment that we have now. You're just going to be miserable, you
Right. Well,
know.
we were talking like right before we were recording this about you think you want to do one thing. Like, I would love it if you could talk again about how you had the idea of opening the Farleys, and
Oh,
then you realized you're like,
yeah, right. Back before, obviously, when I was before I got into recovery, I always thought Madison, Wisconsin needed like a Farley's, like a Cheers, that had not just Christmas memorabilia, but comedy and fun stuff on the walls, and it was a really cool place and just a really happy place. And being Irish, being a publican, is kind of in our DNA. Like Sam Malone, just kind of chatting up with everyone. And I'm convinced I would have known how to sell that and create a space. But then a local bar owner that's had a couple of bars, sat me down and said, that's the tip of the iceberg. Like, that's the easy stuff. Like, you need to every time you cut up a lime, are you going to use every one of those? Like, because tomorrow that lime's going to be useless and dried out. You've got to how much lime do you got to, how much, how much
right,
attention to
ordering
minutia.
everything and cleaning everything and staying
Yeah.
there till 2 in the morning because everything needs
Yeah.
to be prepped for the
And,
next day. Yeah.
and cleaned and prepped. And I'm like, okay, no, that sounds horrible.
And thank
Um,
God that that person said that to you, because could you imagine if then you started a bar and then you're like, wait, I actually want to go into the opposite of this, which is recovery?
yeah, totally. Oh my God, that would have been hard. And just the people, I always think I'm a people person until, people are hard, people are difficult. And I like to think I could be this great manager, but then, um, it it never goes that way, you know?
Right. And then, like you were talking earlier, the expectations when people, depending on what industry you're in, they're going to have these expectations of, oh, this is going to be a great time and they're going to be hilarious and they're going to put on a show. And, living up to those expectations, if that's not like coming from a true, authentic place, would be brutal.
Yeah, well, it's like parenting, you want to be the great parent that your kids love, but like, it's just like an employer, like sometimes you got to draw a hard line and
Sometimes you have to say
like,
no and they're going to be mad at you,
yeah,
and
and you
that's
got to be mad
okay.
at, yeah, and you're a bad guy. Yeah. And it's funny.
Yeah.
Like I got in an argument with Alexa last week. Alexa, I asked what's the temperature out. And she said, well, it's 6:45 in the morning and it's, 40 degrees, perfect time to go for a walk. And I went, screw you. And she answered like, well, that's one way to say goodbye. And I was upset the rest of the day because of that. My, my relationship with Alexa
You're like,
is,
and I have to worry about you?
yeah, like I have a tough time with real people. I'm like, so like that's what I would have carried into this employer situation. I'm like, I don't need this.
It's not the right fit.
No.
It's great when you can do all the work on yourself. I'm sure it was a process figuring out who exactly that you were without the expectations of everybody around you with the last name that you have, to
Yeah.
find the situation and find the business that you are in
Oh,
alignment with. It's such a different
it
trajectory.
is. Yeah. Yeah. It is really amazing. the mission and really coming from the treatment space, and seeing just all the dysfunction and all the, we're not doing it right. I wouldn't be a Farley if I didn't like to be a disruptor. So I love
Hmm.
that creating a website that is trying to redefine how, we seek treatment and how we deliver treatment. And it's not just about what's in network and your insurance, and like we can be
I
better at
hate that insurance dictates so much of our healthcare system. That is a
ridiculous. Yeah.
massive area of contention with me.
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
hopefully, we're going to create this space that it's not just finding the right treatment, but also educating people and just, just eliminating stigma, just, by
Mhm.
saying that it's okay to talk about these things and
Yeah,
to
and I do
seek
think
treatment.
that's a powerful area of like social media. I notice it with my kids now. They are so much more open talking about
Yeah.
therapy and ADHD and all that stuff, and they're talking about it with their friends, and I think it's so cool that it does not feel like what it was like when we were growing up, where like people didn't talk about that, and if you went to therapy something was wrong with you. Now it's like if you're not willing to go to therapy, that is
Yeah.
telling you something about yourself.
They
So
are such a driver. I love that. And I love, and let's be honest, they're the worst. They got the worst of COVID. And we really made it hard on them. And I just talked to a group of 700 middle school, high schoolers yesterday
oh
in
wow,
central
that's
Illinois.
fun.
And I'm like, you guys got the worst, and you're the most resilient people on this planet. Uh, I love your advocacy. I love that you're going to make it through this. And so, I love that, they're teaching us how it's going to be done.
They are
I,
very resilient. I remember my daughter, I was very young at the time of COVID, and I was like, so what do you think about COVID? And she's like, I don't know. This is my first one. And I was like, this is our first one. Like, this isn't normal. This is not a normal part of childhood and going to school in our kitchen. Like, this isn't something that anyone's experienced before.
I used to tell my kids when they started out, used to really uh, encourage their advocacy, and I loved every time they said something. I would say like, I love that you just answered me that way, but I just want you to also know that if I had said that to my parents, I'd be dead right now.
Yeah,
So let's just keep at it,
it's
but
just, you know,
you know, boy, dangerous ground, but I'm going to support you.
okay, right? Very, very different times.
Yeah, completely.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well, we're running out of time, but I do have one final question for
Yeah.
you because I'm sure this is something that people would want to know. I have to ask, what is your favorite SNL skit that Chris did? Do you have a
What?
favorite?
Um, you know, wow. There was there obviously Matt Foley, because he named it after a friend of his, a priest, Matt Foley, that he went to Marquette with, and I love, he brings so much of our dad into it, this loud person. So I've always loved that. But then there was a best of Chris Farley DVD that came out years ago that we had an event here in Madison, a premiere to show this, and I was sitting in the front row, and there was a skit that he did with Bob Saget that I had never seen on SNL. He played this interior decorator named Dante, and I laughed. I was in tears, laughing so hard. I didn't think Chris would. I don't think I would laugh at originally and authentically laugh, but he made me laugh just like he always did. And it was a wonderful moment. So,
Oh, that's so cool.
yeah, yeah.
That's beautiful. Well, if there's listeners out there that want to learn more about what you're doing, where should they go to find you?
Recovery.com, if I look at recovery.com and not just as a search and treatment resource that it is, but look at our resources on back, and like hear people's stories and all the content that we're putting out. Of course, and my LinkedIn, I don't even know what my LinkedIn thing is.
I'll put it in the
Find
show
me on
notes.
LinkedIn, and because I'm putting a lot of great content up there too on recovery and on the stuff that we're doing. So between you know my company website and my personal LinkedIn, some really cool stuff. And
Yeah, I've been following
I
you for a little bit now on LinkedIn, and I love what you're
yeah.
doing. It's
Thank
really
you,
great.
thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the
This has
time
been fun,
today.
Sarah. Thank you so much. I was
Yeah,
looking
it's
forward to
been a
this.
A pleasure talking to you.
Yeah. Gotta see ya.
Thanks for listening to Nothing Small About Business. Make sure you follow the show so you don't miss the value in upcoming episodes. Share this with someone who's growing and connect on socials for more.